Life is full of possibilities. You just need to know where to look. Don't miss out on the joys of life. Like pizza. I can't smell. We can't taste either?
All that stuff is in your body.
No smell, no taste.
Or touch. See?
Okay, I get it.
Disney and Pixar Soul.
What's going on, everybody? I'm here to do a review for the movie Soul. Now, I initially was having an issue with the movie early on. If y'all remember, I did a video, I think last year, where I was talking about how I didn't like how a lot of these Disney movies would have black main characters and then turn them into some kind of a entity that wasn't them, as far as them not being a human being anymore, and then they would switch them out and everything like that for a creature, or in this case a ghost or a soul, as you know, as you would put it. But I actually ended up liking the movie a little bit more than I expected. Despite that part, I do have my issues with it, and I'm gonna talk about that in this particular review. So basically, the movie Soul, it actually was supposed to come out in theaters, I think, back in May, but due to the pandemic, they had to end up putting it on Disney Plus, which of course is Disney's streaming service, and it actually came out on Christmas Day. Basically, the movie Soul is about this man by the name of Joe Gardner, who was voiced by Jamie Foxx, who is this middle school band teacher who has aspirations to be a jazz performer. He's very good at the piano. He takes after his dad, but he just can't seem to hold down a decent musical gig. And then he's working as this middle school band teacher with these kids. He could tell he doesn't really want to do it, but he has to do what he has to do to make some kind of funds to make ends meet. Then, one day he gets propositioned by the principal to become a full-time band teacher. And, he kind of is like, I don't know if I want to do this, because if I become a full-time band teacher, I won't be able to fully live out my dreams as a jazz musician playing the piano. His mother works as I think you can say that she's a seamstress. She has her own shop. She really doesn't want or see him being a jazz musician, so to speak, because she saw what it did with his dad. She was saying how owning this business is what kept the bills being paid, because a lot of the times with the gigs his dad had, he wasn't making really enough money to really keep a roof over their heads. So she really had to step up and had the money coming in order to have the life provided for her son and with her family and everything like that. And she didn't want him to fall into the same trap holes as that is. And I find that is very symbolic, because I find that in a lot of black families, a lot of the parents sometimes don't have the aspirations for their kids the way that they see them. It's almost like they have their life mapped out, and if the child goes against that, then it's like, okay, whatever, I'm not really going to support you. And that's kind of the vibe I got off with his mother early on, and it's because of what happened with his dad. So then one day, he gets a call from one of his old I guess you can say students, and to say that he has a gig for him lined up. If you come in and kind of like, I guess you audition for one of the best jazz players in the city, or around. He comes in, he does the audition, he pretty much blows the person away, and says that you got the gig, and it's at this time, at this place, at the in this setting. And everything seems to be like now going great for him, until one day he gets, in the same day, as a matter of fact, that he gets so excited about it that he ends up, if you saw the trailer, it's not really so much of a spoiler, he falls into the manhole. Now, this is the first kind of issue I had. Now, at least with the movie The Princess and the Frog, you saw Tiana, like literally, had a little bit more screen time before she turned into a frog. With this character, he literally went from being a human for like about a good 5 to 10 minutes to turning into a soul ghost before the credits even open up. It's almost like that whole thing where, if it's a scary movie, it was an old trope that if it was a black character, they will always die before the movie really, before the opening credits and everything like that. It kind of reminded me of that in that aspect. I was like, damn, why we just got introduced to him and already he's turning into a ghost. But basically, his mission is that he doesn't want to go to this place called the Great Beyond, which is basically beyond life, which is basically the final place that all the souls go to for eternity. And he doesn't want to go there because he feels like he hasn't lived out his purpose yet. So he finds a way to break out of all of that, and then he comes across this other little world with all these other little souls. And fast forward a little bit, he has to become a mentor to this one particular soul whose name is 22, voiced by Tina Fey. And basically, she has an issue because she doesn't like Earth. She doesn't want to go to Earth. She doesn't feel like she needs to be there. She has no purpose, and she just doesn't like, going to Earth. And basically, she's the stubborn soul. And it's crazy because her soul number is 22, and a lot of the other souls have numbers that are in the billions. So that shows you how long she has been in this world, and how a lot of the teachers and mentors that she's had who are some very heavily credentialed people who would be a good mentor to her, they were not successful with, getting her Earth passes, which she needs in order to get back, to get to Earth. And then I think it will actually help her mentor, whoever that is, in order to get them back down to Earth as well. So that's basically the mission of the whole movie. Joe Gardner has to help 22, soul number 22, get her Earth pass so he can get back into his body. And a whole bunch of other things, just happen. They end up finding some other souls in other parts of the world. They end up getting back on the Earth, but something happens. They end up leaping into the bodies that are not there. Soul 22 ends up in Joe Gardner's body, and Joe Gardner ends up in the body of a cat. So it's like, wow. So he did all of that just to end up in the body of a cat, and she ended up in his body. And then, after spending hours inside of his body, she realizes that Earth isn't really that bad, and she was missing out on a lot by being so stubborn. And then at one point, I'm getting kind of scared because I'm like, okay, I hope this movie doesn't end with her staying in his body and he gets stuck in the life of a cat. That would have completely ruined it for me. But thankfully, that's not what ended up happening. They end up, going on a mission. He's trying to, because remember, he still has that gig. He still has that gig that he has to be at 7 o'clock that evening. So all of this is happening within a day. It's not like multiple days have passed and everything like that. One thing that I did like about this movie, in one particular scene, well, actually, it was two scenes that I really liked. The barbershop scene, where basically 22 is in Joe's body. And he goes to the barbershop because him as a cat tried to give Joe a haircut, and he messed up because he slipped on the record player and kind of cut this line into his head. No one's going to, take you seriously if you have a line, like a big ass part right there in the middle of your head. And he had to go and get that shaped up. And I like the barbershop scene where you have Joe, or Soul 22, basically telling his story or her story through him about, life and everything like that. And how the barber was talking about he wanted to be a veterinarian and he couldn't do it because, he had bills to pay, so he had to do what he had to do in order to provide for his daughter. And listening to that conversation in the barbershop scene makes me, as a black man, it reminds me of what it's like when I go into a barbershop and the stuff and the conversations that we have. Maybe not in a way that it was in this movie, but just the dialogue right there that they put into this movie in that scene definitely resonated with me. Another scene that I liked was when he had to go get a new suit because the one that he had got ruined. And that's when he finally confronted his mother and was basically telling her, look, this is my dream. This is my aspiration. Take it or leave it. He actually put his mother in his place. And I find that a lot of people sometimes struggle with telling their parents what they really need to hear and not what they want to hear. He basically was saying how my dreams and aspirations to become a jazz player. Her dreams and aspirations for him is just to become a full-time employed person who has benefits, who can pay his bills and stop hopping from gig to gig. And because she saw, again, like I said in the beginning of the review, of how his dad, her husband, struggled, and she didn't want that for her son. But he said, look, I have to be my own man. I'm not going to be like my dad. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do something that makes my dad proud of me. I'm going to do my own thing while at the same time live up to his name and surpass it. Like he said, I have to do this for me. And then the full circle element about this whole movie was, Joe ends up getting his body back, but then he realizes that, after doing all of that, because Soul 22 wanted to, got so used to being in his body that's when she realized that Earth is where she wanted to be. but she was going about it the wrong way. And I was like, oh man, don't tell me she's going to run off and steal his body like that. So they end up back in that soul world again. And then after like a little confrontation that they have, Soul 22 gives Joe the Earth pass. He comes back into Earth as himself. He makes the gig. He performs, and he ends up becoming a new member of the group. So his dreams have now been finally realized. It's like a full circle type of thing. But then he realizes that even after all of that, Soul number 22 helped him out a lot. You know, it helped him show a different side of himself that he didn't have before, help bring something out of him that he didn't have before. So he had to go back into that soul world again. So it's like a lot of traveling between the real world and the soul world. He goes back to the soul world, gives 22 the Earth pass, but then it's a instant dilemma, because Soul 22 is like, look, I have a soul pass, you don't. I can go into Earth, but you can't. So that means you're stuck here, and you might have to end up to the great beyond. And that's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm like, wow, he did all of that to sacrifice himself for a ghost, for a soul, and he may not be able to get back to his body until the people who are over the soul world realize how much of an inspiration he was to them, and how he finally was able to get Soul 22 to find their spark. That they did something they never did for any other soul before, and that's open up the portal back into the Earth world to give him a second chance at life. And I said, thank you. I'm glad that actually happened. So he leaves out, he takes a second chance. They basically said, just make sure you watch where you're walking again. He goes back into Earth, he's back into his body, and then the movie pretty much ends right there. I know I'm glad I'm kind of mad at myself because I gave a little bit of spoilers in this movie, but it's on a streaming platform, so you know it's there if you want to watch it. If you like my review, then maybe it'll inspire you or make you want to go and watch it with your kids. But like I said, I did have some issues with that, and of course the issues that I had was, of course, you have another black lead character who could not stay human for the entire movie. And when they did have him be human more, it wasn't him. It was the soul of another. It was another soul in his body, basically commanding his body. So I see what they try to do there, but for once, I wish we could just have a straight movie, so they don't do with the black lead character, and let them just be that for the entire movie. Because they did that thing with that Spies in Disguise, that movie they came out with Will Smith and Tom Holland last year, where he stayed a pigeon most of the movie. So this is something that, you know, I noticed. One thing I did like about this movie too is the music, and I knew going into it the music was going to be good because it had a jazz element, and that's something that I've never seen in a Pixar movie. I rarely see it in an animated movie. I think the last time we saw that probably was The Princess and the Frog, and that was back in 2009, and here we are in 2020. So you're talking like 11 years ago when that movie came out. But all in all, I really actually enjoyed this movie more than I thought I would. I didn't think I was actually going to sit down and actually watch it until, you know, I saw people talk about it online. I said, okay, let me sit down and actually watch this movie and see what, you know, what it's all about. And it actually was fairly entertaining. So I would suggest that, you know, if you do have kids, you can go ahead and watch it, or watch it, you know, as an adult, because it actually is a fairly decent movie despite the critiques that I do have of it. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Make sure you have that bell clicked, have your notifications set to all, and I will talk to you in the next one.